The technical definition of a habit is a behavior that has been repeated enough times to be more or less automatic. So things that you can do pretty much without thinking about them. Things that you pretty much just go on autopilot when you do them. Now, we often use the word habit to mean different things than that, and we can get into this more. Like you might say things like, I want to get in the habit of working out, or I want to get in the habit of writing every day. And I know what you mean when you say that, right? You mean I want to make it a regular practice. I want to make it this daily ritual that I follow. You're never going to go like on autopilot and forget what you write for an hour. Like it's a more effortful, conscious thing. So we can talk about some of that distinction, particularly with making habits easy. What you really want to do is make the beginning easy and automatic, and then the rest of the routine can follow naturally, even if you're consciously thinking about it. So that's what a habit is. It's this automatic response. Now, why does the brain build them? What role does it play? Well, as you go through life, you need energy to survive. And this is true not just for humans, but for all organisms need some kind of energy to survive. And getting energy requires energy. You need to eat food to be able to walk around and find the next meal. And using energy is expensive because the more energy you use, the less you have available for the other things that life throws at you. And so your brain is looking for ways to conserve energy whenever possible. And habits are a great method for doing that. And it makes that whole process of finding energy, solving the problems of life, and getting through things easier. It requires less energy and attention and effort than it did before. I started to realize that both luck and habits play a role in life, but that you have control over your habits. And the funny thing is, we're building them all the time, but a lot of people don't feel like they have control over their habits. They feel like their habits are taking control of them, that they're like a victim of these bad routines. And once you start to dive in a little bit and like uncover the layers and realize what a habit is and how it works, then you start to develop a little more control over it. And I think if we're going to be building habits anyway, then it makes more sense to be able to understand how they work and how to structure them so that you can be the architect of your habits rather than the victim of them. And your habits also matter. And I think that the reason they're so worthwhile to focus on and understand is that they are the portion of your life that you can influence that also determines your outcomes. It's not just luck, it's not just habits, but one of those you have control over. And so it makes sense. The only reasonable strategy is to focus on what you can control. If you spend all of your time focusing on things you can't control, then you're just going to end up frustrated. Even if you are talented, you can't succeed without having great habits to execute and to fully realize the potential that you have. A lot of the time people talk about, I want to have more money, or I want to lose weight, or I want some kind of result. But the truth is, your bank account is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning and reading habits. It's actually, we think the thing that needs to change is the bank account or the test score or the number on the scale, but actually the thing that needs to change are the habits that precede those outcomes. So what you come to realize is that your habits reinforce a particular identity. And sometimes this can be positive and sometimes it can be negative. The story could be things like, I'm bad at math, or I'm terrible at remembering people's names, or I'm not good at remembering directions. But each time you have an experience that reinforces that, the story gets solidified. So I think the method, the takeaway here, is that every action you take is kind of like a vote for the type of person you want to become. And if you can master the right actions, if you can master the right habits, then you can start to cast votes for this new identity, this desired person that you want to be. I think that's one of the reasons why small habits matter so much. They don't necessarily transform your life overnight, right away. Like doing one push-up does not transform your body, but it does cast a vote for being the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. Or meditating for 1 minute might not give you an immediate sense of calm in your life, but it does cast a vote for being a meditator. And the real goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to write a book. The goal is to become a writer. Because once you've adopted that identity, you're really not even pursuing behavior change anymore. You're just kind of acting in alignment with the type of person you already see yourself to be. It's kind of like true behavior change is really identity change. If you have a messy room, let's say your bedroom is a mess, and you set a goal to clean that room, you can get motivated and do it for 2 or 3 hours, and then you turn around and you have a clean room for now. If you don't change the messy habits that led to a dirty room in the first place, then you turn around 2 weeks later and you have a messy room again. And so actually you don't need a clean room, you need better cleaning habits, and then your room will always be clean. You don't need to lose weight, you need better eating habits, and then your weight will always be around where you want it to be. You don't need more money, you just need better financial habits, and then you'll always have enough money to manage the thing that comes up. And so it's really the habits that need to change, not the result. It feels insignificant on any day, but then you turn around 10 years later and it's actually, you're surprised by where you end up. And that's a hallmark of any compounding process, that the greatest returns are delayed. And so habits are like that too. They don't feel like much on any given day, but they really add up over the months and years. The cost of your good habits is in the present, and the cost of your bad habits is in the future. And the fact that we prioritize the present over the future ends up making a lot of habit change difficult for that reason. And I think that is true for most habits too. Like when you walk into the gym for the first time, you feel very uncertain. It's not your territory. You don't feel like it's your terrain. But once you show up again for a week or a month or a year, at some point you cross this invisible threshold where it starts to feel like, yeah, this is for me, or I belong. And it becomes more likely that you can get that kind of reaffirmation of your identity and start to instantly feel gratified. A variable reward can be a good way to increase the frequency with which you do a habit. So if you say, I'm a healthy person, you might be able to amp yourself up or motivate yourself in the moment. But if you do 5 push-ups, you immediately have proof, I'm a person who works out. And there's something about that evidence that I think makes it easier for you to root that new story in something. It gives you a reason to actually hold on to it. So for that reason, I think it's more useful to start with the small habits, build up some evidence and proof of that new identity. And then the more that you do that, the bigger the pile of evidence becomes, the more reason you have to actually believe, hey, that is me.
Identity is a two-way street. It can either support the habits that you're trying to build, or it can hinder them and prevent them. And so it's worth it to do this little kind of self-assessment and try to figure out, what stories am I telling myself? What is hard for me to overcome because of the narrative that I have in my head? So if you want to reshape your identity, if you're trying to build or foster a new identity, there are really 2 steps. You want to start with figuring out the type of person you wish to become, and then you come up with small wins or little habits that contribute toward that reinforce this desired identity. So it's very simple. Let's say you want to become a writer. So your identity is, I'm the type of person who writes each day. And then your system is, I sit down at my desk at 9 a.m. and I pull up a blank document and I write 100 words. Let's say you're trying to get in shape. Your identity is, I'm the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. Your system is, I wake up at 7 a.m. each day, put on my workout clothes, walk outside and, walk around the block twice. And as you show up in these small ways, whether it's sending 1 email or writing 1 sentence or meditating for 1 minute, they're small actions in the moment, but they provide evidence of being that kind of person. And the more that you build up this body of evidence, the more you have a reason to believe in that aspect of your story. And this becomes really powerful in the long run, because once you start to believe in a story, once you start to have evidence for something, once you start to take pride in that aspect of who you are, man, you have every reason in the world to stick with the habit. If you take pride in the size of your biceps, you never skip arm day at the gym. By linking your habits to your identity, by thinking about how your habits reinforce your identity, you're actually capturing probably the most powerful thing that habits can do, which is they can help shape the type of person that you wish to become.